So what we've got here is 4 graphs that each represent 4 different situations. And the important thing is that you can see what each one means. That you can look at the lines and think, oh, okay, I can interpret this. I see what it signifies. So let's have a look at each one of these descriptions and then see which one it best matches to. So the first situation is a lump sum payment is made during the period of the loan. So these are all repayments, so that's why things are going down. If you make a lump sum all at one time, what would that look like on the graph? What direction is it going in? It's going to go down, right? Because you're paying off, so you'll have less of a debt. So which of these graphs has one of those? It's the last one, right? So you can see this is just the regular repayments, and this is what happens if at a certain moment, bam, you win the lotto or something like that. You can pay that off suddenly, and then the rest of your payments carry on. Does that make sense? So that's what's going to match up to part A. Part B. During the period of the loan, the borrower starts making higher repayments than the ones needed to pay off the loan in the agreed period of time. So an agreed period of time is always set up. 25 years, 30 years, something like that. Come in. What are you looking for?
Can Holly please go down to the software?
Sure. Anyone else? That was very graceful and elegant. Good job. Yeah, Ash?
Is graph 1 what they originally planned to be doing?
Yeah.
And the other one is what they actually do?
Correct. So you can see graph 1 in each situation is identical. So this is what a normal situation looks like, just like we looked at in this question here. Okay. By the way, I'll also point out, it might be easier to see on this one here. I want you to look at something which isn't being asked for here, but it's an important question anyway. I want you to look at the gradient. Can you look at the gradient as you progress from left to right? Just forget about the orange graph for a second, just look at the blue one. Okay. Particularly, do you notice, see each of these dots? Each of these dots, they're spaced out at regular intervals. What are the regular intervals? If you go down, I think it's just after 50, that's at 60. What's the significance of 60? That's 5 years, okay. So these dots are every 5 years. Now I want you to compare these two dots and their vertical distance. Just compare that. And then I want you to compare these two dots and their vertical distance. Think about this. Each of them represents a 5-year slice of time horizontally. But vertically they're quite different. This one's like little here. And then this one I can barely make my hand stretch that far. Why is that? Why is there such a difference?
Because as you pay, the overall payment gets less and less.
Okay, say that again slowly. As you pay what?
That thing.
The loan.
As you pay,
The loan.
yes, the loan. What about the loan?
The total is less.
Yep.
Therefore, the fraction that you're paying is going to be a bigger fraction towards the end of the total.
Okay, let me say that again because that was exactly what you got there in the end, okay? As you pay, as time progresses, the actual size of the loan is getting smaller. Come in. Hey guys, who are you looking for?
Can I just get Eliza to the office?
Yeah, sure. Anyone else?
No, that's all.
Alright, thanks.
What about the interest?
I bet he's lying, but that's okay. He doesn't know that he is. Okay, so the question is about interest, right? I'll come to that question in a second. The first thing that Nick has pointed out is, if you've got a smaller loan, but you keep on repaying, like look, see, over here, it says you keep repaying the same amount over and over again, but the loan itself is smaller. So proportionally, it ought to be getting faster, right? But that's not actually the main thing. The main thing is interest. If we come back over here, right? See how it's really, really slow at the beginning? This is the way all loans go, and it's super depressing. I remember the first time when I got my mortgage, I think I was paying $2,100 a fortnight or something like that. And I think about $1,900 of that, $1,900 out of the $2,100 was interest. So what actual debt I was making off was tiny. That's what's happening up here. The interest is really large because the loan is enormous at the beginning. But it sort of slides down like this because at the end your loan is small, which means your interest is also small. Does that make sense? Okay, so when you come back over here, we're trying to now think about this higher repayment situation. They're paying more than they originally agreed to. It's sort of like this, in fact. So which situation is it? Which one represents, for the orange line, faster repayment than the blue line? This is A. In fact, this is exactly what this graph looked like when we did it a couple of minutes ago. Okay, part C. Now this was going to raise an interesting question for us. There's an interest-only period, then regular payments are made. So in other words, for a brief amount of time, they don't get charged interest, and then they start paying. Okay, which one is that? I think I heard it. This is C. Okay, this is C. Now how can we tell? Maybe look a little closer. If there's an interest-free period, right, that means that this balance owing isn't being made larger by the constant adding of interest. Okay? So therefore you can see it's just sort of flat here. If you hear those ads when it's like interest-free for 2 years or something like that, this is what's going on. Okay? And then you can see the payments get made. And you still end up at the same time the same amount over the same period of time. Okay? Now, I wanted to point out, this raises something really important, because this situation here, part C, this situation is sometimes actually done on purpose, by design, especially by anyone who is renting. We've talked about this. Some people have asked me informal questions before. Why would you rent if you can actually pay off something, like actually have a mortgage and that kind of thing? The reason why is because you don't have enough money. So what does the landlord get out of this? Well, they'll often buy a property, so they'll borrow this huge amount of money, okay? But then they never intend to pay it off. Let me say that again. They'll borrow this huge amount of money to like get an apartment, okay? They don't pay it off. They then get they get a tenant to rent it, and then they put in money. So it looks like this. It's not an interest-free period. It's just that all of that rental money is coming in and is just going straight to paying off the interest. So this is what the graph will look like, okay? Now, why on earth would you get a loan if you never intend to pay off the loan? Why would you do that? What would be the advantage of doing this? Yeah,
The
Renee.
area gets developed, obviously the property then increases in price.
So what we're hoping is that debt does this, right? The debt stays level, but we hope that the property does not stay level, that it actually increases in value, okay? So at some point in the future, the landlord's just gonna sell the place, right? They've still got all the original debts which they've got to pay off, but then hopefully their property is worth more now, right? So there will be a net profit. Does that make sense? So this is a really important idea to get across, because that's the way investments work, basically. Okay, last one, and then I'll let you have a go at these. And it's the last one, so the last graph anyway, so you know what the answer is. For the first 3 years, the monthly repayments are less than the interest on the loan. So this person is not actually successfully paying off what they agreed to. And then regular repayments are made. So can you explain to me why our last graph demonstrates that? What's going on? Why is it going up? Why is it going up?
He's not paying enough.
Because he's not paying enough. If he's not paying enough, the problem with not paying enough is that the interest keeps growing, right? Like if it just stayed level, even if they paid it slower, it would just be a slower graph, right? But the problem is not being enough means actually the interest is taking over and overcoming the payments you're making. And you can see it goes up at this curvy way because that's what compound interest does. And then finally, they have to recover. So you can see there are many more payments that have to be made in the long run. Okay, does that make sense? Do you see how to read particularly how much you owe, whether that goes up or down, versus time, and whether you want to compare something which I think in the previous question, the whole point was that it ended sooner, right? So have a look at these next few questions. Just be really careful when you read these things here, because often your answer will depend on interpreting that, and sometimes the dots, as we pointed out, don't always line up with exactly where you'd expect them to. Okay.